This happened after Superman's death in the Dark Multiverse. On the day when the Man of Steel fell, Lois held the body of her beloved. His eyes were filled with uncontrollable rage and despair. When the Justice League finally arrived one by one, he glared at those so-called heroes. When Superman needed you the most, where were you? You hypocritical cowards! Where were you then? At Superman's funeral, his allies stood in silence and guilt. Among the crowd, Lois wandered aimlessly. He approached, watching those false heroes receiving sympathy, while Superman's dearest couldn't even bear to look at them. He stared at the glittering golden statue, and at Lex Luthor's hollow eulogy. Those mourning opportunists, the only way they could honor him was by selling Superman merchandise nearby. Fanatics held Sons of Tomorrow banners high, their hands stained with human blood. Less than a month after Superman's death, the world had returned to what it once was. War, conflict everywhere, violence and crime filled every corner. Having lost all hope, Lois quit journalism. She went to Smallville to visit Clark's parents. The elderly couple hadn't even been invited to their son's funeral. Unable to bear the pain of loss, Jonathan sank into dementia. Only Martha still held on, running the farm alone. Then Diana came to the fortress one last time, knowing that Lois was pregnant. Their child, the one who would carry the love and hope of two worlds. But Bruce believed that humanity wasn't worthy of such a burden. As he stood before Superman's tomb, the alarms in the fortress suddenly roared. Steppenwolf emerged from a surge of energy, revealing himself to protect the last son of Krypton. He cast Kal-El's body into the life matrix, but still, no sign of life had returned. Steppenwolf could no longer control the Matrix's power. He needed a physical vessel to preserve the Kryptonian bloodline. At that moment, Grey Diana stepped forward and offered herself. Though her physiology was incompatible with Kryptonians, the desperate Steppenwolf had no other choice. Crimson energy surged endlessly into Lois, into her very body. A beam of red light shot from the fortress, piercing the void, and the unknown Goddess of Rebirth was born. From that moment, a terrifying new power awakened. He swore to create a world worthy of Superman. In less than a few weeks, he had already incited wars and chaos, trafficked weapons, and fallen into corruption, ending up starving to death. Simply put, he was a high-end version of Homelander, without any restraint or emotion. But the more things Lois did, the more doubts she had. She couldn't help but wonder, why doesn't Superman completely destroy this world? Why is he indifferent to death? Why does he ignore all cruelty and violence? Is he truly pure and righteous? Or is he afraid of saving humanity? While Lois was handling a nuclear accident, she discovered Lex was the mastermind behind it all. She knew that the current evidence 1800-02, 39, 06600, 02, 40, 600 wasn't enough to convict that man. LexCorp's powerful legal department made him untouchable and fearless. But Lois decided to take the simplest, most brutal approach. They grabbed Lex's son, Luthor JRB, and threw him into the upper atmosphere to burn to ashes. After spilling the first drop of blood, Lois felt no guilt at all. He began to exterminate all opposition and criminals indiscriminately. The International Mercenary League, Cadmus, was reduced to ashes in his fury. Black Adam and Harley Quinn betrayed him, and both fell under the sword of the vengeful goddess. Then Lois turned her sights to Batman. A burst of heat vision instantly incinerated Robin. The Joker mocked him, saying, "Didn't you have a rule not to kill?" Hearing that hypocritical line made Superman sick to his stomach. He unleashed a demonic blast of heat vision, forcing an unprepared old man to leap out of the classroom to fight back. But Superman wasn't interested in a duel. Facing the shadowy figure of the Dark Knight, he burned him to a crisp without hesitation. After doing all of this, Lois felt a strange sense of satisfaction. Clark could no longer see who he used to be. After that, the story unfolded almost exactly like Injustice: Gods Among Us. Clark fought the mechanical Superman in an epic showdown in Metropolis. The super soldiers and cyborgs joined the fray in a world-shaking battle. In the middle of the fierce fight, Clark caught sight of a familiar silhouette in the crowd. Dragging his frail body, he still selflessly saved the people. At that moment, Superman realized for the first time the mistake of playing God. He didn't want it to be true. He didn't want Lois to see what he had become. Superman's eyes were still filled with warmth. But when he looked around, he found everyone staring at him with fear. Confused, he asked himself why. But before he could finish, the mechanical Superman aimed its deadly weapons at them. In a frenzy, Superman charged forward recklessly. He smashed the mechanical Superman and Keisha's weapons to pieces, but the massive explosion that followed instantly engulfed the entire city. When Clark finally regained consciousness, the woman he loved was already gone forever. On that broad and gentle face of his, only fear and despair remained. Superman personally killed the one he once vowed to protect. The air around him grew heavy with death and ghostly gloom. Darkness spread through his body, and he was lost in a whirlpool of vengeance and madness. Even the bravest hero could no longer save him. Countless civilians suffered,